And I found 4 areas that are important for women in our movement. The first is as a mother, and the second as servant of the servant. The third area is as a preacher, and the fourth area is showing how to go back to home, back to Godhead at the end of life. So what I've done is I've got different quotes, and also I've got examples from the past in our movement, how women have done different things in our movement as mothers, as servants of the servant, as preachers, and also at the time of death, how they show the example of going back home, back to Godhead. So the first thing is, as a mother, I'd like to share with you one mother's experience of when her son was diagnosed with brain tumors, how she learned some lessons from this, and it changed her perception of her relationship with her son and her relationship with Krishna. So she learned 4 lessons. The first lesson was humility. And she said, we've been so proud of Braju, his intelligence, since his birth. He started reading at the age of 2. He scored so high on college tests, 3 years younger than most. Even now I praise him. He's my extension. So it's basically, in my pride of my son's gifts, I glorify myself internally. So we sometimes do that. We see our sons come out the way we want, and then we think, oh, it's because it's my doing. Yeah, so what she learned here is humility, that Krishna actually is the one who's giving the ability to do things. So the second lesson, so first lesson was humility. The second lesson was giving up control. Because as a mom, she says, I think I'm the protector, I'm the maintainer of my kids. We want to protect from all danger, but no, I'm not in control. So Krishna showed her that. Actually, it's Krishna protecting and maintaining. So today and every day I offer, she said, my boys, my students, my dependents, myself to him, they belong to him. And this offering of control gives relief and peace. When we realize Krishna knows best, and he's in control, and he's our best friend. And so he will help us go through the difficult times in our life. So giving up control, humility. The third lesson is mortality. When during his operation in the 6 hours, she was thinking maybe Krishna will take him, maybe he will leave. And she was thinking, well, that still should be okay. That will be okay. Praying to Krishna to keep him in this temporary material condition was like foolishness, keeping him suffering, just to make me, to keep my attachments. Why should I keep him suffering? So mortality. We know this body's temporary. We all have to leave. We cannot stay here permanently. And so she asked the question, and at that time of transition, time of death, will I be ready? Will my deep attachments from this lifetime call me and hold me back again to come for another birth? Will my mind be overcome by fear, pain, and shock, or will I be serene and focused on my next steps and Krishna's names? So mortality, another lesson. The last lesson, loving reciprocation. How Krishna is reciprocating, how he's loving us. And so Krishna has given us a great opportunity to learn early on to prepare for death. That's what she learned here. Don't be more preoccupied with temporary achievements of this one lifetime, where when eternal blissful life waits, Krishna is waiting for us. He's just waiting for us to turn to him. So that he arranges these circumstances is actually his greatest sign of love. I think I better put my glasses. That will help. More microphone?
Yeah.
Okay. No, that's better?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, just in the wrong place. These so-called catastrophes shake us out of our ignorant slumber. So we have to wake up. They open my eyes, they force me to evaluate what my true heart's desire is, to reside eternally with Srila Prabhupada and the Lords of my life, Gauritai and Sri Radhamadhava. So that's the first thing, we're all mothers, and we go through difficulties. So she learned these lessons when she went through these difficulties. That give control to Krishna, be humble, loving reciprocation with Krishna. The second role that women play in our movement in Krishna consciousness is servant of the servant. And how does that manifest? Well, Prabhupada in Bhagavatam, 7th canto, he says that 7.5.12 is the verse, that in the spiritual world, everyone should praise, everyone praises another's service. Everyone is happy, they're not proud, you're not proud of your own service. Maybe there's competition between servants, but there in Vaikuntha, the service of another servant is appreciated. No question of enmity between servants. So Prabhupada, he was giving service equally to everyone. He engaged the women also as pujaris, as cooks, in so many ways he engaged the women in our movement. So not only servant of the deities, but when you're servant of the deities, when you're pujari, you're servant of the Vaishnavas, because you have to take the offerings from everybody, give them to the deities, and then give the prasad back. So that's what my experience when I was pujari in Calcutta temple, then you have to just be ready to serve the Vaishnavas also, if you're head pujari. And one time, one of my god sisters, Palika, she was serving Srila Prabhupada. He was also, his prasad was even more desired than the deity's prasad, because the devotee's prasad is very, very special. So one time, but the problem was, the sannyasis were coming and they were saying, I want this and I want that, and they were fighting over the different preparations. So she went to Prabhupada and complained to Prabhupada, I'm having such a hard time distributing prasad. And Prabhupada said, okay, just mix it all up. Then there was no problem. They weren't so eager as before. So yeah, distributing prasadam. The pujaris have to do, the cooks, the heart of the devotees is prasadam, and it's Krishna's secret weapon. So the women learned how to cook for Prabhupada, cook for the devotees, cook for the deities. And so the third thing that women did in our movement, when Prabhupada was here, they were frontline preachers. Prabhupada said, he wrote a letter to Malati, he said, women in our movement can also preach very nicely. Actually, male, female bodies, these are just outward designations. Lord Chaitanya said, whether one is a Brahmin or whatever he may be, if he knows the science of Krishna, then he is to be accepted as Guru. So when I joined in 1970, there was no distinction, the women were giving classes. Now it's also like that. Women giving classes. They were leading the Harinam, they were leading the kirtans in the temple, they were pujaris. In fact, in New York Temple, when I visited in 1972, now if you go to the arti in the evening, nobody's there. I mean, in the Henry Street big temple. But in 1972, 150 devotees used to go. And one lady was leading the kirtan. She was one of the most popular. Her name was Varanasi. And she was leading the evening Arti Kirtan, which is one of the biggest kirtans of the day. And so, yeah, we went to, so this was happening. And Prabhupada praised the grihastas, the householders. He said when Lord Chaitanya delivered Jagai Madhai, then Vishnupriya wasn't there, his wife wasn't there. So he said that I find my disciples combined together, husband and wife, are doing preaching work so nicely. So he sent all 3 grihastas to London, and they within 1 or 2 years, they were doing Rath Yatra. They had George Harrison. They were very, very successful. So he said, so I'm especially proud how my household or disciples are preaching Lord Chaitanya's mission. This is a new thing in the history of Lord Chaitanya's mission. In India, all the acharyas and their descendants later on acted only from the man's side. Their wives were at home because that is a system from old times, that women are not required to go out. But in Bhagavad Gita we find women are also equally competent like men in the matter of Krishna consciousness movement. Please therefore carry on these missionary activities and prove by practical example there is no bar for anyone in the matter of preaching work for Krishna consciousness. So when we joined in 1970, the standard was you learn how to cook, you learn everything, and then after 1 year, husband and wife go out and start a new temple. So we were sent to Jackson. It was like that. They send you with no money. You have to figure it out. They just drop you in the city. On the street. I know one of my friends, Rachitambra, she and her husband they sent them to start a temple in Gujarat, a farm. So the farm had no house on it. They were just sitting underneath a tree and singing bhajans. Then monsoon came, and they still kept singing under the tree in the rain. So then one rich man heard about it, and he came, he built a house, he gave them food. But that was how we were in the old days. I remember also Pritu's wife, Ramburu, was saying that's how in Germany she and her husband had to go and start a temple, and they were going door to door because they had no place to live, and they were begging the people, can we use your oven to make bread? So they were eating bread. And people were kind, and they were allowing them to use their oven, and they were making bread to eat. So it was very austere. But it was an emergency, still an emergency. So in India, the women were also giving lectures in the pandals, and all the pujaris in India were women, except for Mayapur, Jananivas. All the New Delhi, Calcutta. Vrindavan, there was no temple in the early days. It was just, Vrindavan, actually, for the opening, Prabhupada wanted the women to dress, but the men objected. So, but some women still dress the deities, even though they objected. Yeah, I think Lakshmi Wani maybe did dress the deities for the opening. Bombay, before the opening, it was all women, and Calcutta, Hyderabad, even after the opening, it went Palika, who said Pujari. So Prabhupada was very equal. Here in the West, the women were doing book distribution, and they put babies on their backs and go to the airport and distribute books. But again, like Kirtananda, he complained and he said the women should just churn butter and cook, and he said, so he took all the women from New York and Boston temples and sent them to New Vrindavan, and Prabhupada wrote a letter that, so far as the women distributors who have left New York and Boston and gone to New Vrindavan, they should return immediately and resume their original service. In Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement, everyone is a preacher, whether man or woman, it doesn't matter. I don't know why Kirtananda is encouraging our women devotees not to go out on Sankirtan for book distribution. Everyone should go out. And so Prabhupada liked that, liked the women to preach. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, he said that since both the boys and girls are being trained to become preachers, these girls are not ordinary girls, but are as good as their brothers who are preaching Krishna consciousness. So we are thoroughly instructing both men and women how to preach, and actually they are preaching wonderfully. So then the last examples of women in Krishna consciousness are those who have left their bodies and gone back to Godhead, were successful at the end of life. But first, before I tell that, perhaps I told this last year, I don't remember, about Jagatarini, or last time I was here, how she got married, but she didn't tell her mother, and she was a famous actress, and it came in the newspaper, strange cult, forces famous actress to marry Japanese monk. Her parents got the newspaper and they said, "Oh my God, it's our daughter." So they went to meet Prabhupada, and Jagatrini, Prabhupada asked, "So this is your father and mother?" She said, "Yes, Srila Prabhupada." Prabhupada smiled at her father and said, "Your daughter will deliver you." Usually in India they want the son, so the son will deliver. But Prabhupada said in Vaishnava culture, the girls can also deliver the family, not only the boys. Yeah, the girls can also. So he told many of his women disciples, "You will deliver your family." So the man was a little flustered. He said, "Oh yes, we always knew she'd do something like that." So Prabhupada said, "Don't think she's giving up your service. She's doing the highest service. Because of her, so many generations back, so many forward will be liberated." So that's why everybody should become a devotee, both men and women. In the other Smarta Prachar, or Smarta Brahmanas, only the boys can do it.
Yeah.
But in Vaishnava culture, the women can also deliver the family. So there was my god sister Kunti, and she got cancer and she was paralyzed from the waist down in a wheelchair and so much pain. But she was always smiling, always encouraging, making everyone happy. So the local TV station heard about it, and they met her. They'd never seen anything like it. And
Is she the same as Karnamrita's mom?
yeah, it's Karnamrita's mom. Yeah, Karnamrita's mom.
Okay.
Exactly. So she was giving lectures about the beauty of life, beauty of bhakti, the good fortune of anyone who has Krishna. And the hostess on the TV show said, "How can you be so happy when you're in such a condition?" So Kunti said, "I know I'm soul. I'm soul. I'm eternal. This body is just a temporary situation, and this is bringing my soul closer to God. Therefore I'm rejoicing and I'm happy." And so that was one example of somebody going back to Godhead, very happy. So another one in Mayapur, a Spanish lady who was not famous or anything, and also Kunti, she was just a simple devotee. These are simple devotees. That means there's hope for us. Anybody can do this. Anybody can go back to Godhead. And so she was a Spanish lady, and she was dying, and she went unconscious, and then she came back and said, "Oh, Krishna, I saw Krishna, and he asked me to come with him, and I refused." So then she went unconscious again, and she came back, and she said, "Oh, this time Radharani asked me to go, and I accepted." Then she left after that.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Krishna, Krishna. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, so these are the examples. One more was there named Manarupa, and her husband tells how her condition. "Manarupa is so happy and blissful. She told me, 'You've given me so many wonderful days, taking me to the most amazing places in this world, had presented me the most loving friends and family. I had so many wonderful times, but this, by far, is the best time of my life. You saved the best for last.'" Here she is dying. She's saying that. Why is she saying that? He said, throughout all this year's struggle with health, she had no pain. Even now, she's not taking any painkillers. She's fully conscious and in bliss, true samadhi. Mind is equipoised, focused in the holy name, form, and pastimes of Krishna. Devotees and Vaishnavis take times to perform kirtan for her in our humble dwelling. She has stopped eating solid food to become more internal and focused on the ultimate goal of human life, to go back to Godhead, back to Krishna. Now the Lord's will is pervading. He's giving her so much love through devotees and friends from around the world. So it was Ekadashi in Mayapur during the Kirtan Mela, so she asked her husband's an astrologer. She asked her husband, "Is this a good time to go?" He said, "Yes." And she asked, it was Mangalarti time, are the deities open? He said, "Yes," and then she just left. So it seemed like she had the choice when to leave.
Almost like Vishwadev.
Yeah, yeah. So these are some examples of ladies in Krishna consciousness. There was now one who is Parvati, my god sister in Vrindavan. She's in charge of maintaining Prabhupada's samadhi. So she's been in the ICU since 2 weeks. They're waiting to take, now they want to take her home, but they need an ICU nurse. I saw that. So 3 times she left her body while she was in ICU, and they brought her back, giving oxygen and different things. And the last time they brought her back, the first word she said was samadhi. She's thinking of her service to Prabhupada. Gopal Krishna came, His Holiness Gopal Krishna Maharaj came, and she gave him all instructions what he had to do to take care of the samadhi. And so these are the examples of women in Krishna consciousness in our movement. They're mothers, and they're servants of the servant, they're preachers, and they're showing us how to be get perfection at the end of life. And the examples I gave, most of them are just simple mothers. Manorupa, Kunti, the Spanish lady, they were just simple mothers who took care of their children. And they lived a Krishna conscious life, and at the end they achieved perfection. So everybody can do that. Jai, all the ways to Shri Prabhupada, Hare Krishna. Any questions? Do we have time for questions, or okay?
Why is everybody so comfortable? Shivani, come. Amrita has a question.
Okay.
Krishna, as you were mentioning, like Prabhupada used to give the training for 1 year, then send them anywhere he wanted, and like from scratch. Even nowadays, we feel we need a little bit comfort, and we ask, or rather, demand our parents, if I'm not going to do, I'm not going to do that, Then I understand Prabhupada has that capability to convince. I want to know what make you convince, or the situations or something.
Yeah.
Because now, even after listening a lot of lectures, we are not so much convinced to chant or something to do.
What made us so convinced was Prabhupada's example. That he was a saint. He was a saintly person. Whatever he said, he was the example of that. He told us to do austerity, he did more austerity. So we were convinced by his example. We were convinced by his compassion, by his love for us, by his kindness, by his care and concern, and by his revolutionary spirit. He wanted to make a spiritual revolution. And we were into that. We were into spiritual revolution. Material revolution didn't work, but the spiritual revolution was working for us. It was happening in our hearts. And that's the verse of Bhagavatam at the beginning of first canto. He put that this literature can create a spiritual revolution in the hearts of the materialistic persons. So we were convinced by his love, by his example, by the books, the chanting. We were very happy chanting, happy chanters, because we were on Harinam 10 hours a day. So if you do 10 hours a day Harinam, you get convinced. Yes, you lose contact with your body. I remember somebody asked one time, maybe I was sick, and somebody said, "Are you feeling okay?" I said, "Well, I really can't tell. If maybe I have a fever, or maybe it's just ecstatic symptoms. I don't know." That's how we were, We couldn't tell if we were sick or not. Even, it was like something very special.
Yeah, I remember once Guru Maharaj was sharing that when he would go on Harinam and you know, they would be dead tired by the time you know they'd return, but then there was still that energy was still there,
Yeah,
and
energy was
even
there.
in their sleep they were humming, or they would get up with it. The tune was still there, you know, playing in their heads, and
Yeah.
it was like we were, like you were saying, in a different world altogether. So,
Yeah, he put us in the spiritual world,
Yeah.
really. When I was Pujari in Calcutta was a very austere place, a lot of rats, a lot of big cockroaches, and I was sleeping on the floor for 18 years in India, just on a chatai. And but I felt like I wasn't in Calcutta. I was in the spiritual world with Radha Govinda. 20 hours seva, 4 hours sleep. I felt like, yeah, I'm in the spiritual world. So he gave us that taste. He gave us a taste. It wasn't mechanical, but it was very spontaneous. He taught us spontaneous devotional service, actually. It was not, that spontaneous means you do it out of love. We weren't forced, it wasn't mechanical. We loved him, and we loved the deities, and we loved Harinam. And he gave us that love, that taste to do spontaneous devotional service. And because, I just remember, I was reading in Bhagavatam today that these boys and girls, he was talking about us, we have given up, we gave up all our material activities. And it was about Narada Muni being cursed by Daksha. He says, I'm also being cursed by the parents because they feel their children are being deprived of enjoyment in this world.
mm-hmm.
No illicit sex, no gambling, no intoxication, no meat eating. He said, but they have naturally taken to renunciation out of knowledge. It is not false renunciation. There is knowledge there. And not only knowledge, but taste. He gave us taste. Yes?
I am curious to know where is the balance between material and spiritual revolutions
What is the balance between material?
and spiritual revolutions?
Revolution.
What is the
Yeah,
cutoff?
material revolution is,
Why don't you can you have the mic a little closer to
yeah,
you?
okay, balance between material and spiritual revolution. Material revolution is external. They want to bring you down. They want to bring some people down in order for them to go up. That is material revolution. The communists want to bring down the capitalists. The capitalists want to bring down the communists. And but spiritual revolution means that it happens in everyone's heart. It's not an external thing, but it's an internal thing. Your heart becomes clean, and you experience spiritual happiness. And by chanting Hare Krishna. The spiritual revolution is when people become free from envy, free from lust, free from greed, and engage in devotional service to Krishna. That's a spiritual revolution.
Thank you.
Yes?
On the extension of the same question about Mataji asked, that Prabhupada encourages so much on completely dedicating our lives to Krishna.
100%. Yeah.
But whereas in our generation, like we are going to our jobs and nobody is saying that like you
Leave your
dedicate
job.
fully, like probably that is why how we are here. But still, is such strong preaching is happening here?
No, now the times actually have changed. It is, and Prabhupada also said that, he had that vision that the time will come when there will be congregations and people, everyone, that's why he wanted Varnashram, because not everybody can do surrender completely. So Varnashram means that you have your natural propensity, you have your natural ability, and you use it in Krishna's service. So yes, not everybody is expected. Even in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, okay, just think of me. If you can't do that, do bhakti. Follow the rules and regulations. Can't do that, okay, just help this movement somehow. So those are the three things that are accepted as devotional service by Krishna.
Currently, such strong preaching is not happening in ISKCON.
It maybe in some places. In some places, maybe in Russia, maybe in China, maybe in the Muslim countries. But they have to be really careful there. They can't, it has to be really underground in most of the Muslim countries. They have to be very, very careful. I was talking to some devotees who were living in one of those countries, I can't remember, Qatar or something, and they said, one time if the government finds out, they just deport you immediately. You go to your job and you find you lost your job and you have to leave the next day. Out of the country, if they find out. They just deport you immediately.
Right.
So that's why these people I was talking to, they moved to Australia or someplace because then they're free. They're free to practice. Yeah.
So Mataji, back then, how common was it for women to take initiation? Like when Prabhupada was giving initiation?
Yeah. Well, it was the same as the men. There was no difference. No difference there. Men. Yes.
I was just thinking on lines of what Amrita was saying. When you all joined the Prabhupada, you were all in your teens.
Yeah,
Most of you
low
were in your
20s.
teens, like 16,
22,
17,
22 was high.
20.
I was like older. I was 22. My son was 25. He was real. My husband was 25. Yeah.
See, it had. It's completely.
And that's amazing.
Yeah.
It's like
'Cause
uncommon.
we have children of that age. A lot of us have our children, our teens, or getting there,
Yeah.
17, 18, 19. And we don't see even a spark of it, even a tiny amount of that faith or devotion or love for Krishna. So it's really it is unbelievable, and I often think about it, and I think you were empowered by Prabhupada directly, and it just pulled you in that it sucked you
Yeah,
into
it was hard.
the
It was,
faith and
yeah, I wasn't thinking to join. Join means you join, because my husband wasn't so interested as I was. So I wasn't, but then I got a little push and I left him and joined, and then he joined too. It's like, it was,
and this is a completely different culture.
I know,
You know,
yeah.
You are an American culture, and we are eating the different food, different clothing, different
I know.
value system.
Sheets.
It's so different.
We were wearing sheets.
Yeah, you're very sheets.
Not saris and tutu. Yeah, it was unbelievable. Even we couldn't believe it, Yeah, anyway, yeah. Okay, I think we have to stop because something is happening, right? With the men here?
The Prabhus have planned
And,
something.
they're doing something? Okay, thank you, Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Madam.
Hare Krishna.